Arya Stark stood backstage, her hands sweating as she clutched a small note card. She could hear the audience murmuring, waiting for her to speak. Her heart pounded. What if I forget my words? What if they laugh at me? The fear of speaking in public was real, and Arya felt like running away. Just then, Black Widow, a confident and charismatic speaker, walked up to her. "Nervous?" she asked with a smirk. Arya nodded. "Don't worry," Black Widow said. "Speaking English in public isn't about being perfect. It's about being confident. Let me show you how." Before we dive into Arya's story, welcome to English Tone. This is the place where you learn to speak English naturally and confidently. If you ever feel nervous speaking in front of people, this story is for you. Now, let's find out how Arya overcame her fear and mastered public speaking. Arya sighed, feeling a deep weight in her chest. The stage in front of her felt like an ocean, and she was drowning before she even stepped onto it. She had always admired people who could walk onto a stage, speak with confidence, and make it look effortless. But for her, speaking English in front of people felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, looking down at the unknown. "I know I need to speak in public," she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "But my mind just goes blank when I try." Black Widow stood next to her, arms crossed, eyes sharp but kind. "That's because you're thinking about fear instead of thinking about your message," she said simply. "You're asking yourself the wrong questions." Arya frowned. "What do you mean?" Black Widow leaned in slightly, as if she was about to reveal a secret that could change Arya's life forever. "Right now you're thinking, what if I forget my words? What if I make mistakes? What if people laugh at me?" And that's exactly why you freeze. But instead, ask yourself this: what do I want to share with these people? What message do I want them to take away? Arya was quiet for a moment. It was such a simple shift in perspective, yet it made sense. She had always thought public speaking was about impressing people, about not messing up. But what if it wasn't about her at all? What if it was about them, the people listening? She took a deep breath and let that thought settle in. "Okay," she said slowly. "So I should focus on what I want to say, not on my fear?" "Exactly," Black Widow nodded. "When you focus on the fear grows. But when you focus on the message, the fear shrinks. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be clear." Arya exhaled. "That sounds easy, but I still feel scared." Black Widow smirked, as if she had been waiting for Arya to say that. "Of course you do," she said. "Fear doesn't disappear overnight. But there's a way to handle it, and that way is preparation and practice." Arya tilted her head. "Practice? But I do practice. I just don't feel confident even after that." "Then you're practicing the wrong way," Black Widow said simply. "You're probably repeating your speech over and over, trying to memorize every single word, right?" Arya hesitated. "Well, yeah. Isn't that what I'm supposed to do?" "No," Black Widow said, shaking her head. "Memorizing every word only makes you more nervous. Because the moment you forget one word, your brain panics, and everything falls apart. Instead, practice in a way that makes you feel natural." Arya sighed again, rubbing her forehead. "I don't know, Black Widow. Maybe I'm just not meant for this." Black Widow's eyes narrowed. "Do you think I was born confident?" Arya blinked. "Weren't you?" Black Widow laughed, a real deep laugh. "Of course not. I used to be just like you, scared, afraid of judgment, worried I'd look foolish. But then I realized something. Confidence isn't something you're born with. It's something you build. Arya looked skeptical. And how do I build it? Like I said, by preparing the right way. First, we're going to take control of your speech. No more memorizing, no more trying to be perfect. Let's break it down step by step. Arya nodded slowly, feeling a small flicker of hope inside her. Maybe, just maybe, she could do this. Black Widow grinned. All right, let's start preparing properly. Follow me. Arya stared down at the sheet of paper Black Widow had handed her. It was filled with simple bullet points, short, clear sentences outlining the key parts of her speech. She hesitated for a moment, staring at the list. I always thought public speaking had to be complicated, she said, glancing up at Black Widow. But this is so straightforward. Black Widow smiled, leaning against the wall with a relaxed posture. That's the secret. The more you simplify your thoughts, the more confident you'll feel when speaking. The audience doesn't care about complicated words. They want to understand your message clearly. If you try to impress them with fancy vocabulary, you'll only trip yourself up. Arya nodded thoughtfully, realizing how much easier this approach made everything feel. She looked at the list again and noticed how easy it was to follow. The ideas weren't overwhelming, just clear and direct. Okay, I see what you mean. Simple English it is. Black Widow gave a nod of approval. Exactly. Now read it aloud to yourself. Don't worry about memorizing every single word. Just read it to get a feel for it. You should understand what you're saying so well that it comes naturally without you having to think about it too much. A speech shouldn't sound rehearsed. You want it to sound like a real conversation, even though you're speaking to a crowd. Arya took a deep breath and began reading her speech aloud. At first, it felt a bit strange. She had always been taught that speeches needed to sound polished and perfect, that they had to be filled with big words. But as she read, she began to relax. The words flowed easily, and she wasn't stumbling over anything. She felt more connected to her message than she had ever expected. This doesn't feel so bad, Arya said, her voice a little more confident now. I can do this. It's like talking to someone. Black Widow smiled, proud of Arya's progress. That's the key. Public speaking isn't a performance. It's a conversation. The more natural you sound, the more the audience will connect with you. They'll listen to you, not just hear you. But what if I make a mistake? Or forget something? Arya asked, her voice wavering slightly. Don't worry about that, Black Widow reassured her. You're human. Everyone makes mistakes. The important thing is to keep going. If you forget something, just take a moment, breathe, and keep moving forward. It's all about how you handle the moment, not whether you make a mistake. Arya thought about this for a second. In her mind, she had always imagined public speaking as a perfect performance, one where every word was carefully chosen and perfectly delivered. But Black Widow's words made sense. Perfection wasn't the goal. Connection was. Okay, I think. I understand now, Arya said, putting the paper down. But how do I actually practice this? I mean, I don't have anyone to speak to right now. That's easy, Black Widow said. Start by practicing in front of a mirror. That way, you'll be able to see how you look while speaking. Watch for any awkward movements or gestures. If you feel comfortable talking to yourself in the mirror, it will help you feel more at ease when you're talking to a crowd. Arya raised an eyebrow. Talking to myself in front of a mirror sounds a little strange, but okay. I'll give it a try. Trust me, it works, Black Widow said with a wink. And when you're ready, practice in front of friends or family. Ask them for feedback. They'll give you advice on how you can improve, but remember, not every piece of feedback needs to be followed. The most important thing is that you feel comfortable with your delivery. Arya nodded, absorbing all the advice. It was all starting to make sense. She wasn't trying to memorize a perfect script or speak like a news anchor on TV. She just needed to be herself, confident, natural, and connected with the audience. The more she practiced, the more she would improve. All right, let's try it again, Black Widow said. This time, speak it aloud, but think about how you want to feel while speaking. Imagine you're confident and relaxed. Don't rush. Take your time and let the words flow. Arya took a deep breath and stood up straight. She closed her eyes for a moment, imagining herself at the podium, looking out at a crowd, speaking with confidence. She took another deep breath and began reading her speech aloud again. This time, she spoke with even more assurance. Her voice sounded clearer, and her body language was more open. She felt more relaxed than before, as if the words were coming from within her, not something she had memorized. How did that feel? Black Widow asked, watching closely. Better, Arya replied with a smile. I'm starting to feel more comfortable. It feels more natural now. Great, Black Widow said. That's the spirit. You're on the right track. But there's still one more thing we need to work on. The secret to speaking with real confidence. It's not just about what you say, but how you say it. Arya raised an eyebrow, intrigued. What do you mean? Black Widow smiled. Well, that's what we'll talk about next. And with that, Arya felt a sense of excitement growing inside her. She was ready to learn the next step and take her public speaking to the next level. The journey had only just begun. Arya looked at Black Widow, who was already pacing back and forth, looking completely at ease. So, you want me to speak while moving around? Arya asked, still skeptical. Black Widow nodded with a knowing smile. Exactly. This will help you overcome the nervousness that keeps you stuck. Let's make it fun, and trust me, it will help you speak more naturally. Arya's hesitation didn't last long, but the idea of walking around while speaking seemed strange to her. I can't imagine walking around while speaking, Black Widow. What if I trip or sound weird? Black Widow chuckled. That's the beauty of it. When you're walking or doing something else while speaking, you stop focusing on how you sound. It becomes just another part of your body's rhythm, and suddenly, speaking feels easier and more natural. Although Arya still had doubts, she agreed to give it a try. She took a few deep breaths, adjusted her stance, and began walking in small circles as she spoke about her favorite hobbies. At first, her words stumbled. She was trying to concentrate too hard on what she was saying. She felt awkward, unsure of herself. Her voice seemed stiff and robotic, as though she was reciting a speech instead of just talking. Black Widow noticed the discomfort on Arya's face and immediately stepped in. Remember, it's not about the perfect speech. It's about moving freely and allowing your thoughts to flow as naturally as possible. Forget about trying to sound perfect. Just talk as you would to a friend. Arya nodded, taking a deep breath before trying again. This time she wasn't focusing on every word or every sentence. She simply allowed herself to walk and speak as though it was an everyday conversation. Her words came out more fluidly this time, the awkwardness slipping away bit by bit. See? Black Widow said with a grin. How much easier is that? Arya stopped walking and looked at Black Widow, surprised. Wow, that actually felt more comfortable, but I still don't know if I could do that in front of an audience. You will, Black Widow assured her. But here's the trick. When you're walking and speaking, you're training your body and mind to get out of that thinking too much mode. You're shifting your focus from the fear of making mistakes to the act of speaking itself. Once you get comfortable with this, It will feel just as natural on stage. Practice is key, so let's try another variation of this. Arya raised an eyebrow. Another challenge? Black Widow nodded enthusiastically. Yes. Now, try talking while jumping in place or clapping your hands between sentences. It sounds silly, but doing something physical with your speech forces you to loosen up and stop overthinking. At first, Arya hesitated, but seeing how confident Black Widow was, she decided to try it. As she jumped and spoke, she couldn't help but laugh at herself. The whole situation was so unusual, but strangely enough, it worked. She was starting to feel freer in her speech. It's strange, Arya said, pausing to catch her breath. But I'm actually having fun. That's the point, Black Widow said, walking over and clapping her hands for emphasis. Speaking should be fun. Once you stop worrying about sounding perfect and just focus on connecting with your words, you'll sound more confident. Arya stopped jumping and stood still for a moment, reflecting on how different it felt to speak without constantly analyzing every word. You know, Black Widow, I can feel the difference already. I don't feel as tense. Exactly, Black Widow said with a smile. And that's the goal. Relaxing and letting your body and mind work together to speak fluently. If you practice like this, the next time you have to speak in front of an audience, it'll feel so much easier. Don't worry about the perfect performance. Just let yourself be real. Arya nodded, feeling a renewed sense of confidence. She was starting to see how public speaking didn't have to be about getting everything right. It was about being real, relaxed, and allowing the conversation to flow. All right, Arya said, getting ready to face her biggest challenge yet. I'm ready for the next step. Black Widow smiled and gave her a thumbs up. Great. Now let's move to the final piece of the puzzle, how to control your nerves before stepping on stage. This is where everything comes together. As Arya stood backstage, preparing to speak, Black Widow's words echoed in her mind. Focus on your audience, she had said. The idea of looking at the crowd and treating it like a conversation felt strange at first, but Arya decided to trust her mentor. Black Widow had told her not to focus on herself, on the mistakes she might make, or the words she might forget, but to focus on connecting with the people in front of her. Arya took another deep breath. She could hear the rustling of the audience settling into their seats. The tension in the air was palpable. The fear was back. It crept in like an old friend. What if I fail? What if I can't speak properly? She glanced at Black Widow, who was standing confidently in the corner of the stage, arms crossed, watching her. You've got this, Black Widow said, her voice calm and reassuring. Remember, you're not alone up there. Your audience wants you to succeed. They're here to listen, not to judge. Arya nodded, taking another slow breath. She could feel the weight of the moment, but she knew she had to push through it. Her heart raced in her chest, but with every heartbeat, she felt more determined. Black Widow had explained that confidence didn't come from knowing you'd never make a mistake. It came from knowing how to handle those mistakes when they happened. It was about embracing the uncertainty of the situation, trusting yourself, and being okay with imperfection. I can do this, Arya thought. I just have to be myself. The moment was here. The host called her name. Arya walked onto the stage, trying to keep her steps steady, but her legs felt like they were made of jelly. The bright lights above her made it difficult to see the audience clearly, but she could hear them. Their murmurs, their rustling. They were waiting for her. She took her place at the podium and smiled, just as Black Widow had instructed. Arya, took a deep breath and began to speak, her voice sounding a little shaky at first. But as she spoke, she remembered Black Widow's advice. Don't focus on yourself. Focus on the audience. She looked out into the sea of faces. At first, it was overwhelming. There were so many people, all staring at her, waiting to hear what she had to say. But instead of feeling judged, she imagined that each person was a friend, a person she could talk to. She looked into their eyes one by one and smiled. The more she looked, the more she felt a connection. Her confidence started to grow. The words flowed more easily as she focused on sharing her ideas rather than worrying about making mistakes. And when she forgot a word, when the pressure felt too much, she followed Black Widow's advice. She paused. It was only a second, but that pause gave her space to breathe, to reset, to gather her thoughts. The audience didn't mind the pause. In fact, it made her seem more composed. Arya realized that silence wasn't something to fear. It was a tool to help her regain her focus. She continued, and with each passing moment, her nerves began to subside. She spoke a little louder, a little clearer, and most importantly, with more conviction. But despite her growing confidence, there was still something inside her, an unshakable feeling that she wasn't completely ready. What if I make a mistake? The voice inside her whispered again. What if they don't like what I have to say? But then she remembered the most important part of Black Widow's advice. If you forget something, take a second and continue. Nobody expects you to be perfect. The next time she stumbled on a word, she took a deep breath and simply moved on. It was the most natural thing to do. No one in the audience had noticed the stumble. They were listening to her ideas, to what she was saying, not judging her every word. And that was liberating. When she reached the end of her speech, Arya found that she was no longer nervous. She had spoken confidently, expressed her ideas clearly, and most importantly, she had enjoyed it. The fear she once had about public speaking and making mistakes had slowly faded. Instead, there was a sense of accomplishment, of being proud of herself for having done it. She glanced at Black Widow once more, who was giving her a nod of approval. Arya felt a rush of gratitude toward her. Without Black Widow's encouragement, she would have never pushed through her doubts. But there was still something Black Widow had promised her. The more you practice, the easier it gets. As Arya left the stage, feeling victorious, she knew that this was only the beginning of her journey. There would be other speeches, other opportunities to speak in front of people. Each one would be a step toward becoming the confident speaker she had always dreamed of being. Arya felt a new sense of empowerment as she walked off the stage. She had conquered her fears and learned something valuable along the way. Confidence in public speaking wasn't something you were born with. It was something you built over time. And the most important lesson? Practice. She knew that speaking, English in front of others, was a skill she could keep improving. She didn't have to be perfect, but she had to keep trying. The atmosphere backstage felt like a pressure cooker. Arya Stark's heart raced, her palms felt clammy, and she could feel the sweat starting to form at her temples. She looked around at the audience through the curtains. People were chatting, their conversations filling the room with noise. Suddenly, a voice boomed over the speakers, cutting through the murmurs. The next speaker, Arya Stark! Arya froze. This is it. This is my moment. She took a deep breath. It was now or never. You've prepared for this, Arya, she whispered to herself, remembering Black Widow's words earlier. You've got this." With a final glance at Black Widow, who was standing by the wings, giving her a reassuring thumbs up, Arya straightened her back and stepped forward into the spotlight. The bright stage lights made her squint, but she refused to let them intimidate her. As she walked onto the stage, her heart still raced, but something inside her had changed. The fear wasn't gone, but it had been replaced by a sense of determination. She was no longer a nervous speaker. She was a person with something important to share. The microphone was just in front of her, and as she adjusted it, she felt a sudden wave of confidence wash over her. She had a plan now, something she could rely on. This was not just about standing in front of an audience. It was about delivering her message in the simplest, most impactful way possible. She took a deep breath, glancing at the audience again. Then she smiled. The smile felt real, not forced, because Arya now understood that public speaking wasn't about pretending to be perfect. It was about being yourself. She was here to speak from the heart, and that was enough. Without wasting any more time, Arya started speaking. "Good evening, everyone. I'm Arya Stark, and I'm here to talk about how we can all speak English with confidence." Her voice was steady, clear, and most importantly, natural. Arya had learned that it wasn't about speaking in the most complex way. It was about simplicity and clarity. She wasn't trying to impress anyone with complicated words. Instead, she wanted to communicate her message effectively and authentically. As she continued speaking, Arya noticed that the nervousness began to fade. She remembered Black Widow's advice. Don't focus on the fear. Focus on the message. Arya found herself doing just that. She shared her journey, her struggles with English, and how she overcame her fears of speaking in front of others. She spoke from her heart, connecting with the audience through her honesty. And then she paused. For the first time in her speech, she deliberately took a deep breath. She didn't rush. Instead, she embraced the moment. The pause was not awkward. It felt like a powerful break that allowed her audience to truly hear her. Arya smiled to die herself, realizing just how much she had grown in these past few minutes. The more she spoke, the more she felt herself becoming the confident speaker Black Widow had encouraged her to be. Eye contact. Arya scanned the room, meeting the eyes of several people in the front row. Smiling. She could see them nodding, listening, engaging. She knew now that public speaking wasn't just about her words. It was about connecting with the audience, making them feel a part of her journey. "I want you to know that speaking English isn't just about grammar or perfect pronunciation," she continued. "It's about being brave enough to say what you want to say, even if it's not perfect. I've made countless mistakes in the past, but every time I've learned and gotten better." The words flowed freely now. Arya could see the audience, reacting to her honesty. She wasn't trying to be someone she wasn't. She wasn't performing. She was simply having a conversation with a room full of people, just as Black Widow had suggested. As the speech neared its end, Arya paused once more, taking another deep breath. She looked out into the crowd, and her voice softened. "So, I encourage you all, speak up. Speak with confidence. Don't let fear hold you back. You're already on your way to being a better speaker, just by showing up today." Her words hung in the air, and for a brief moment, it was silent. Arya smiled, knowing she had shared exactly what she needed to share. Then, the silence was broken by the sound of clapping. The audience applauded her speech, and Arya couldn't believe it. She had done it. Her heart swelled with pride, and as she looked over at Black Widow, she saw a proud smile on her face. Black Widow gave her a thumbs up, silently acknowledging her transformation from a nervous speaker to a confident one. Arya felt a sense of accomplishment, but more importantly, she felt a new sense of self-belief. She had overcome the fear of speaking in public. As Arya left the stage, the audience's applause still ringing in her ears, she realized something important. Public speaking wasn't about being flawless. It was about being real, confident, and ready to connect with others. And that was all that mattered. Inspired by Arya's journey, you too can speak confidently in English in front of others. Don't worry about making mistakes. They are part of the learning process. Focus on your message, practice regularly, and be confident in what you have to share. Public speaking is not about perfection. It's about speaking from the heart and connecting with your audience. Now it's your turn. How do you feel about speaking English in public? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Remember, if you liked Arya's journey and want to learn more tips and tricks for public speaking, like, share, and subscribe to English Tone for more inspiring stories. We believe in you. Now let's keep learning together.